Welcome to Front Office Pros, brought to you by the Front Office Pros, Steve and Joe. We're going to be talking about Dynasty running back tiers. This is post NFL draft. We did a video a few months ago on Dynasty running back tiers, but for this version, I'm going to be a little bit more bold than I was before, and Joe's here to give the reaction. Before we get started, we are a new channel, so if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button to show your support.
Hike!
So we're going to be going through 9 tiers for Dynasty running back rankings. And for this video, we're going to be going through tiers 9, 8, and 7. And then we have next video coming out tomorrow, which will have 6, 5, 4. And the video after that, which will be 3, 2, 1. So starting off with tier 9, running back 33, I've got Khalil Herbert. I know Khalil Herbert is a darling, I would say, in the fantasy football community. I think a lot of people think that now that David Montgomery is gone, they didn't really replace his production, with anybody substantial. The Bears did draft Roschon Johnson. But there have been some interesting comments made by Eberflus regarding that pass protection is going to be the most important aspect for a running back. And I'm not ready to crown Khalil Herbert as the player to be able to get all of this volume in the Bears' backfield. I'm not even sure if they will even get a lot of volume as this. I think the offense is going to run through Fields, passing obviously, but also what he's done with his leg. So I just think it really caps his potential. So that's why I got Khalil Herbert at 33. Then 32, I've got Alexander Mattison. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily love this spot, and I'm very curious about how he's going to do. I wonder if they're going to bring in a veteran on the cheap. I mean, you've got guys like Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, still outstanding, that haven't signed. I just question whether he will get the entire backfield to himself. If he does, just from a pure opportunity standpoint, I like his possible upside. I just don't see it happening for very long. It might just be a one-year stint. Then at 31, I've got running back Antonio Gibson. He's definitely been a riser for me. In my last video I did with tiers, I had him lower. I want to say it was maybe neck and neck between Brian Robinson. But I think Antonio Gibson has a great opportunity with new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. I think they're going to give him a lot of options to get a lot of targets in the receiving game. I think he's just a more dynamic running back than Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson's more of that thumper type of running back. So I like Gibson's potential, but he only has 1 year left remaining on his contract. And we know for running backs, getting a second contract, it's quite difficult. And the volume for the next location is not guaranteed. Then I've got at number 30, I've got Kendre Miller. I really like Kendre Miller. The problem with Kendre Miller is I don't see him possibly seeing the field anytime soon. They signed Jamal Williams as a free agent, but he's a little bit older. And then you've got Alvin Kamara with this whole legal stuff. What's going to happen to him? So I almost think Kendre Miller could get redshirted, or maybe if, Jamal Williams gets injured or Kamara gets banged up like he did last year, maybe Kendre Miller gets that opportunity and he never looks back. But I really like him going forward. I think he's a really dynamic slashing running back. So I like his potential, but it's just hard to see what his future holds just yet. We'll know a little bit more heading into next year. I could see him taking a Rashad White sort of jump next year, and I'll talk about him a little bit later. Then my last running back in this tier, number 29, is James Cook. I'm a Bills fan. I like James Cook. I just question whether he'll get as much volume as people think he will. I think in order for him to be even in the running back one conversation, he's going to have to be involved in the passing game. And I think that's a big if. He will be, but how much will he be involved? Will it be Dalton Kincaid? Will it be Gabe Davis? Does he really take a step up? People thought it was going to be last year. Does he take a step up? You've got Khalil Shakir. Is it James Cook? I just don't know what that third passing option is going to be. There's some targets available. I think he's going to share the workload from a rushing perspective with Damian Harris. And who knows? I mean, as you know, Joe, when it comes to Latavius Murray, who's the journeyman, he was very productive in Denver. So who knows if he's able to do really well in camp. So I'm just a little bit cautious when it comes to James Cook. I'm a little bit lower than most are when it comes to him. But Joe, what is your reaction to the running backs in this tier?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of an interesting tier because you got, I feel like these are almost guys. You got a couple, you got Kendre Miller, rookie, second-year player, and James Cook, and then kind of the other three guys. It's like they're guaranteed like good production this year, but what's their future like? So I think your tier is interesting. I think personally I like Khalil Herbert a little bit better than Alexander Madison. Even if Madison gets the full workload, I think we've seen that happen before. I think he's a decent back, but I think Herbert's potentially got a higher ceiling there. I'm like you. I really like Antonio Gibson for this year. I think Eric Bieniemy is going to do wonders for him, and McKissick is no longer there, so there's definitely some receiving targets that are up for grabs as well. Then I really think that the Bills are going to need James Cook to be a dynamic receiver in that offense. The receiving corps for the Bills have been pretty lackluster. They really don't have much of a threat outside of Stephon Diggs. So I think they really need James Cook to step up, in the receiving game. And like you said, I definitely think he's going to be splitting carries, at least with Damian Harris. But you mentioned Latavius Murray, who showed he's got some juice left when he played with Denver last year.
So heading over to tier 8, I really would call this my veteran tier here. But at number 28, I've got Dalvin Cook. It's really hard to kind of figure out where Dalvin Cook is placed in this ranking because we just don't know where he's going to go. But I think as far as his relevancy goes, we're talking about 1 year to maybe 2 years max. I think recently we've heard he could be going to Denver, surprisingly, Joe. He could be going to the Patriots, which I find shocking, as well as the Jets. I think his best landing spot would be the Dolphins by far. Those other ones, I think, would be kind of more concerning. So hard to really know what Dalvin Cook's future holds, but I think for now, this makes sense as a placeholder. Then for 27, I've got Alvin Kamara. I think Alvin Kamara really took a step back last year. I know he dealt with the rib injury, I want to say, but he did so well with Sean Payton and took a real step back with Dennis Allen at the helm for the coach for the Saints. And I think Kamara is going to start getting faded out. I think you're going to see more of a reliance on Kendre Miller. He's the future. And then the thing with Jamal Williams, I mean, he was a touchdown machine last year. If that happens, does that really take away Kamara's upside? Then in 26, I got Aaron Jones. It'll be interesting if Jordan Love ends up, throwing the ball to Aaron Jones as much as Aaron Rodgers did. I believe Aaron Jones has 1 year left on his contract. I think after this, I think Aaron Jones might be done as far as his career. So it's just hard to rank him any higher because this is it. And then at 25, I've got Joe Mixon. He's a little bit younger. I thought he'd be gone, but from the Bengals, he may still be. Who knows? But my hunch is he'll be there now for at least this season. But after that, I could definitely see him moving on from Joe Mixon, the Bengals. And the thing with Mixon is, he's had different run-ins with the law. I don't know how much of he'll fit a culture. He's like a culture guy. When it comes to running backs, if you've got too much baggage, teams are just not going to consider you. So I think Mixon has got 1 year left, and then I think he's done as well. So that's what I got for tier 8, Joe. But what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, first thing is, why are you so surprised that Dalvin Cook could go to the Broncos? You seem surprised with that.
Well, because we're hearing reports about Javonte Williams really progressing in his rehabilitation. And so, to me, we were curious whether he'd start on the PUP or not. And all indications, at least from Broncos camp, now this could just be them being with rosy glasses, but they're saying that Javonte Williams is going to be, on the field. So if he's on the field and they like Samaje Perine, I just, do they really want to have like a three-headed monster? From a fantasy perspective, right, it would be a nightmare. From a football perspective, if that's what Sean Payton wants to do, so be it. In my mind, I just don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. For fantasy, it'd be an absolute nightmare. I think if the Broncos do get Delvin Cook, it's really gonna, be a state testament of where Javonte Williams is, and they're gonna work him back slowly. I know Sean Payton likes Samaje Perine as well. He chose Denver because Payton said he had a significant role for him. So it'd be very interesting if he does go to the Broncos, what would happen there. But I agree, they're great, for the NFL, and Sean Payton would definitely have a plan for him. He'd be, his new Alvin Kamara type role in the Broncos offense. And then, it's interesting. I know you're saying Aaron Jones, this could be like his last year in the NFL. I don't know if I entirely agree with that, but it's definitely like, I guess you could say probably his last year as a, starter in the NFL. I think that'd be fair. And then with Joe Mixon, he's 100% going to be on the Bengals this year. It'd be too late in the game for them to pivot off him at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just it's tough when it comes to these older running backs because all of a sudden they just hit a cliff and it's done. I actually think that Leonard Fournette, maybe not as much Zeke, but Leonard Fournette and even Kareem Hunt, I think they still have a lot of juice left. But for whatever reason, we're not hearing a lot about them. That's just my concern, just with the running back position, that there's going to be a fall off.
Yeah, that definitely could happen. And I think we're about to figure out where those guys are going to land here as we get closer to training camp. This is typically the time that, teams will look to add those veteran type running backs, and these veteran running backs on the market don't really want to participate in training camp either. So they try to hold off for a long period of time, but July and around training camp is definitely the time for them.
So heading over to tier 7, at number 24, I've got David Montgomery. I was a lot higher on David Montgomery in the last running back tiers that we did, but because my firm belief was the Lions, I didn't care what they were publicly saying. I thought they were out on Swift, which was true. They were out on Swift. They ended up trading him away, but they ended up replacing him with Jahmyr Gibbs and drafting him really high, much higher than I think most expected him to go in the NFL draft. And so as a result, I think, they're putting their money where their mouth is by picking him and trading away Swift. That's a big move on their part. So I think they're investing a lot in him, and I think they have a real plan to utilize him. So obviously, it really hurts Montgomery's value as a result. Then for 23, I got J.K. Dobbins. I got to tell you, I don't understand why the fantasy football community at large raves about J.K. Dobbins. I really don't understand it. He, in his rookie year, I want to say he was like 17th in like PPR or 21st of PPR. Like it was like mid RB2, right? When in his rookie year. Then he tore his ACL, was completely out for 2 years ago. Then he comes back from the ACL. He progresses. He's starting to look better, but he's still not himself. He showed flashes of himself. So now he's going into his 4th year, his last contract. He's going into a contract year. No guarantee he comes back with Baltimore. You've got a new offensive coordinator with Todd Monken. On top of that, you've added offensive weapons like Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham. So it seems to indicate they're going to put the ball in Lamar's hand. They're going to throw a lot more. And J.K. Dobbins isn't been the most prone for being a great receiving back. So it's like, okay, he's not going to be that used in the receiving game. He's still recovering from the injury. He's in a contract year. And you've got Lamar Jackson, who takes away from his rushing ability. Lamar Jackson's still going to run. He's still going to take carries. He's going to vulture touchdowns. So what does J.K. Dobbins' future hold? Even if I would think that he's probably not going to go back with the Ravens, and then if he doesn't, who's going to want him? I don't think people are going to be like jumping up and down to go and get him. So I'm a lot lower, way lower than most other people when it comes to Dobbins. I just don't understand the hype surrounding him. Then I got 22 at Cam Akers. He's another one that fits the same category for me. They came in the same draft class. He's also in the same situation. But the whole melodrama that happened with the Rams, I thought was really odd. He basically didn't play, but then he came back, started playing well. I don't know. Maybe they patched things up, but I would not be surprised if he gets overlooked again and some other running back, maybe Zach Evans, who they just drafted, or they brought Sony Michel. I'm out on. I will say this pretty boldly. I will not be going for Cam Akers at all in any draft unless it's a very, very cheap discount. He is a guy that's completely off my list. I just do not trust what happened last year. I know he got involved towards late, but we already saw it could happen. We saw what happened with Darrell Henderson as well. So for me, I don't want anything to do with him. But he has that potential to be good, so I still feel like I have to account for that, and that's why he's there. Then the last guy I got in this tier at 21 is running back Miles Sanders. I actually like Miles Sanders. I think he has a good opportunity in Carolina. I think he's going to have solid volume, and he's not going to really compete a lot with carry. I don't think you have to worry about Chuba Hubbard at all. But he's on a short-term deal with Carolina. Just don't know how relevant he's going to be long-term. So that's what I've got for tier number 7. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on those players? I got some hot takes in there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, mostly your hot takes are between J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers. Two of the guys that I'd probably be more higher on than you. I'd have them ranked higher potentially. I'm interested to see what your case is for one of your guys in tier 6 there. But I think David Montgomery's in a fair spot at 24. Sanders, I'm interested to see, what he's going to do in Carolina's offense. I think that's a fair spot for him. But, you've always been a J.K. Dobbins guy. I understand. I do think he's in line as long as he's fully healthy, which I think he should be by now. It kind of show flashes of the explosiveness towards the end of last year. I have a little more faith than you do in him that he rebounds and has a better year this year.
But what does that even translate to? Like, you think he could be an RB1 this year?
Maybe not an RB1, but I think he's definitely, a solid RB2 conversation for sure. I think him and Akers are kind of in that same boat with maybe potential to be RB1s possibly, but low end. I'm not saying like top 5, top 10 or anything.
So that does it from tiers 9 through 7. If you are curious to hear more about the other tiers, well, be on the lookout. Hit that notification bell because we are going to be releasing these other rankings coming up in the next few days. So you won't want to miss that. Also, we are a new channel, so if you enjoyed this video, we ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also support us by following Apple or Spotify podcasts if you enjoy to listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.